break out the champagne, the fog machines, and the liturgical dancers. It's time for the Vatican II Electric Boogaloo Birthday Party Bash. This banger party is devoted to the 60th anniversary of Vatican II, which is certainly not a robber council that contains any error whatsoever. Now, your party hosts, Frank and Brian. And happy birthday, Vatican II.
Happy birthday, Vatican II. Yes. So apparently it kind of snuck up on me, but apparently this week, the week of October 10th, so I guess technically October 11th is the date, 1962.
Wow, has it been that long, Brian? It seems like only yesterday.
Well, kind of predates us, but you hear about it all the time, so you figure it's such a new event, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
So apparently October 11th of 1962 is when the Second Vatican Council began.
Wow, what a happy day.
Fantastic.
I
mean, it's. I think 60 is kind of a big anniversary. I mean, it's not 50, it's not 75, it's not one of those kind of neat little 05 anniversaries, but 60 years is pretty good.
Yeah, that's a while.
Yeah. So, internet has all kinds of great stuff talking about it. Well, anyway, I guess maybe we should just start off this is a special edition.
This is a special episode. Y'all are platinum double mile subscribers right now, so you are gaining access to this exclusive content. It's you, the listener, and probably about 5 other people are the only platinum subscriber tiers that we have.
Exactly. I'm just laughing at because all the professional Catholics have that, right? You have to subscribe for that. We have
they call them paywalls. It's just like, oh, you got a baby. It's just money. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, can you imagine if Christ had that? I'm going to give you guys some parables, but the other parables you got to pay a little extra for those parables. All right. So I give you the parables for free, but I explain them for a little extra money. Could you imagine?
For an extra $12.99 shekels a month. Oh no.
That would not have gone very well. I don't think we would have much Christianity these days. Everybody ran around with a paywall, but
yeah, and y'all are in luck because Brian and I hate money. We avoid it at all costs.
Yeah.
We dump our time into money-losing endeavors, such as our last season of Trad Talk Radio. This season of Trad Talk Radio, we're basically spending our own money to do this because we hate money that much.
Yeah, no,
it's stupid.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I mean, some people go on podcasts or radios or networks or whatever, and they make money, and we're the opposite. We find ways to do things that other people make money doing, and we don't make money doing. Actually, we end up paying money because you got to subscribe or pay for podcast platforms.
And I'm paying for the royalty music, the royalty-free music service. Like I hate money so much that I transform it into guns, beer, motorcycles whenever I get the chance.
Consumables, things of that nature.
Unspent money is the root of all evil.
I
hate this stuff.
Yeah, well, so we I guess we embrace that.
Yeah.
The anyway, back to that's kind of we're doing our first ever special. What are we calling this? This
is a special episode. I don't know what
special broadcast, special episode.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because we
platinum tier subscriber only paywall episode.
That's right. So I think we're doing it as a special episode for 2 reasons. Number one, 3 reasons. Number one, it's the birthday of Vatican II. Number 2, I really don't want to give a whole hour to it. And
we just don't have the time.
And number 3, you can never really run out of content, kind of goofing on the council that always keeps giving, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, this could turn really sour if it was just a massive goof fest, like a 1 to 2 hour goof fest. I mean, not that there's any shortage of material to goof on.
If this episode, which that you're listening to now, were to be the first episode on the AM Catholic Radio Network, the forbidden episode would have been like the first episode, I guess, if this is what we led with, and it would have been one and done at that point. So it's a good thing that we're doing it this way. Well, so a couple things I think.
Without any further baloney, it's time to start goofing on Vatican II.
So, should we give disclaimers? Yes, it was a valid council. Yes, it was.
It was a valid council?
Oh, well.
I understand there's been some dispute on that matter.
Well, I don't know. I'm just
topic of debate.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and proceed with the Brian portion of Brian and Frank of Trad Talk Radio is claiming that it's a valid council.
I don't make any such claims.
Right.
I don't know what it is. I just don't make any claims as to it being valid or invalid.
Yeah, well, I've heard a very trusted internet source, and by no means anybody who is extreme radical tradition or whatever the case is, whatever verbiage or set of a contest, nothing like that at all. But I heard a very trusted source say that it was a robber council.
Yes.
I mean, you had,
Marcel Lefebvre said that.
oh, there you go. Oh, yeah, and much people rolled in there with an agenda, and we know that because there were schema associated that had been prepared, preparatory documents,
Right.
in from the time that Pope Saint John the 23rd had been elected in 58. I think like 90 days into his pontificate, he says, "We need a council." It just is odd to me that you're Pope for like not even 90 days, and you're going, we need an ecumenical council.
Yeah, that's a little strange.
It seems a little bit like you're coming in, kind of like you maybe already thought you were going to do that before they voted you in. But anyway, so
I can't imagine somebody just like devising that they need to do a council within like 30, 60, 90 days.
seems like incredible hubris, doesn't it? I just it just seems, I don't know. I mean, how could anybody like? And I think he just said one day I was walking through the Vatican Gardens and the Holy Spirit told me that we need to have a new council. I don't know. I mean,
yeah, well,
but even if you, I don't know. So anyway, the council was called, and then it took a few years to prepare. And these folks in the Roman Curia, and I believe people like Ottaviani,
Yeah.
and who's the other guy that was with him on that? Bacci? Who was the guy who wrote that? Anyway, there's a couple.
I forget, I wasn't there.
Yeah, there were a couple of guys that, who later on would come out against Novus Ordo, who were part of the Roman Curia, who were like, this is not good. But anyway, they gentlemen like that prepared the documents. Commissions were formed,
Right.
and and of course, the point of preparatory documents for a council was so that you could roll in there and you kind of had the doctrinal groundwork laid.
Yeah.
You had the roadmap kind of laid, and it would be kind of consistent with what the church was teaching and always taught. There was a bit of it's just you're making sure that your outline is pretty solid.
Right.
And then I think immediately, and I'm not kidding, immediately within like day one, you had folks saying, throw it all out. We're going to go ahead and get in committees with committee leaders, and we're going to rework those documents. We're not going to be pigeonholed by whatever Rome, however safe they wanted to make it, because the Holy Spirit is compelling us to just to wing this thing and kind of fly along at the seat of our pants.
So was that a deviation from how councils had typically been conducted in the past?
I don't actually know what they did in 1,000 years ago or whatever. I don't know what kind of preparatory work was done on it. I'm pretty sure it was a deviation from Vatican I.
Okay.
Because I think that would have been probably the model they would have used for Vatican II, just because it was less than 100 years later,
Okay.
about 100 years later.
Yeah.
So, but the interesting thing was then, of course, that was, and it was really kind of like the French and the Dutch and the Germans who were like, okay, we have guys that can go ahead and head these commissions, for the new outlines to be commenced.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of like, it was kind of rigged in the sense that they rolled it in and they said, no, we're not going to work with these existing documents that were prepared for the council, and now we're going to go ahead and put our own guys to head the committees as we kind of revisit these documents, and then we're going to go ahead and meet in committee and throw these ideas out there, and then we're going to have people voting on it, and probably like a lot of congressional documents that the U.S. Senate, U.S. House of Representatives does. Nobody actually reads it when they vote it. You know what I mean? So I just wonder if people even read this stuff. But so that was the beginning, the foundation of it. Very kind of interesting and strange. The other thing that's interesting about it, talking about its birthday, is, as we have talked about before, Frank, how many anathemas were there in Vatican II?
Oh, Brian, I'm gonna have to get my my calculator and my slide rule out to I think it was somewhere
Start throwing numbers. Put a number out there. How many anathemas do you think Vatican II had?
Oh, it was I'm trying to remember. It was a very complicated number. 0.
Yeah,
0.
That would be correct. That would be correct. There was no new dogma declared. No doctrinal, I don't know, clarity provided. There's no anathemas. There was no heresy being condemned.
Yeah, nothing.
So either there were no heresies left, which is great. Can you imagine that, like having a church that there's no heresies left to condemn?
That's so great.
It's like, hey, we're all out of heresies. Let's just have a council talk about like pastoral initiatives.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
definitely.
so then without calling a and we talked about this too before, but with communism raging in the world and concrete,
Say you're an agent of the Freemasons without saying you're an agent of the Freemasons.
you had Masonic infiltration, you had communism running rampant throughout the world in the church, and you had modernism, this synthesis of all these various heresies.
Yeah.
yet unconquered, and you're like, hey, we got a council, but we have nothing to condemn. We're not going to bother with condemnations or
all
anathemas.
we're going to do is monkey around with the liturgy. That's all we're going to do.
That was the first thing they did out of the gate. But so they called it a reform council, and they said it was a pastoral council, and so that's kind of been a big focus in recent years, and already with this 60th anniversary of the opening of the council. That's been I found a pretty cool article online. I've quoted him before, but Eric Sammons, who is the editor of Crisis Magazine, wrote a good article about it to discuss this, which is it is purely a pastoral council, and therefore it's already outdated. Like, it already outlived itself. Like, any initiative that you have, a council that's convoked to figure out how to talk to the modern world expires very quickly, because the modern world changes
that
very.
Makes sense.
I just kind of kind of garbled it out of my mouth, but yeah. So any kind of council whose purpose is to engage the modern world and kind of shape its message.
Yeah, I mean, we see that today with going to actual Novus Ordo masses, which we don't recommend, but you'll see all this boomer stuff in there, all the disco, like Brady Bunch music. That's all you see. Nothing in there from anything relative. I think the most recent thing was like Life Teen, like John Paul II World Youth Day kind of stuff.
Life Teen.
But even that stuff is based in the 80s and 90s. That's going out of fashion.
It is always people who are way too old to be. It again, we hate to say it about that meme, that Steve Buscemi meme, right?
How do you do, fellow kids?
Hat backwards, skateboard over their shoulder. You know what I mean? Some old guy walking down the hallway. That's
Vatican II.
That's Vatican II. Vatican II is
Vatican
Steve
II.
Buscemi in that. Where did it even come from? That must have been like a Saved by the Bell or something. It was
TV show.
Yeah. And so what happens is the council was really the objective of it was just pastoral. It was just a matter of saying, okay, how do we engage the modern world? There was a good article or a good blog post, I guess, that came out a few years ago, written by by Dom Hugh. Dom Hugh was Dom Hugh Somerville Knapman is Benedictine. I think he's in England. And I don't think he has his blog anymore, and I reblogged it at the Liturgy Guy. But he called it Veiling Vatican II, or Veil Vatican II, Moving On. I kind of reblogged it with some commentary entitled it Time to Let Go of Vatican II. The point of it being that the shelf life had expired. And I think Dom Hugh makes a great point. He says, Vatican II, described itself as a pastoral council, and it sought to repackage the teaching, life, and worship of the church to suit a world in flux. But for this very reason, the council was necessarily going to have a best before date or sell-by date. Mm-hmm. That date has passed. The sad thing is that the milk turned sour very soon after packaging. Dom Hugh's a very loyal son of the church. This isn't like some radical guy coming along who is, but
I don't know. He sounds kind of divisive to me.
By many people's standards, that is division right there. Yes. Mm-hmm. He says, by any reasonable standard of judgment, the application of the council failed miserably to achieve its aims. This statistical revelation of decline is quite apart from the decline experienced by Catholics, as they have seen dogmas, doctrines, morals, and many other elements of Catholic life thrown into chaos in the wake of the council. Which is, in fact, I was mentioning the Eric Sammons article in Crisis Magazine. He says debating Vatican II today, right, because you have the folks primarily of a certain generation still scratching their heads saying, we haven't fully implemented Vatican II. That's the problem. Vatican II hasn't been fully implemented.
Oh, man, it's been 60 years. 60 years you've had to implement it. I think it's been implemented about as fully as you can with still maintaining anybody in the church. Like, I mean, obviously, it's like this gradient curve of participation goes down as implementation of Vatican II goes up. It's like when you go to a church that's been totally Vatican II-ified, there's nobody there.
You might as well go to the empty Presbyterian church or Episcopalian church or Methodist church at that point. I mean, it really is.
Yeah, that's what people do. They just go be Protestants.
Yeah, they went to be Protestant. They went evangelical. They left altogether because pretty much anytime the Catholic Church is going to try to be Protestant, there's going to be a Protestant church that does it better.
Yeah, they're like, this is just a Protestant church with the worst barbecue, and I can't be a Freemason. This is stupid. Like, why would I even come here?
Life Teen is like the evangelical church that's going out of business because nobody likes the preaching or the music. So pretty much they're going to be going where the guy, they're like, his father could just wear jeans and have a better band. I think it would be right there. Well, trust me, there probably is a parish somewhere where father's wearing jeans and there's a better band and they're calling it a Catholic church.
Probably the majority.
So anyway, the debate, of course, is between the folks who are saying that it hasn't been fully implemented. No, there's actually three arguments here. One says has yet to be fully implemented. I think that's actually the Pope Francis argument, and the hierarchy currently has not been fully implemented, which is funny because the folks who've been running the show for 60 years. What do you mean hasn't been fully implemented yet?
Also running the show like tyrants.
Yeah.
You need a permission slip to do anything other than a Vatican II mass.
Yeah, you want a Latin mass, no permission slip. The second position is that it was implemented incorrectly, particularly when it regards to the liturgy. Hey, it's great. The documents are fantastic. You just didn't implement them correctly.
Third position, it was implemented correctly because it was a plot to destroy the church from within.
It's a feature, not a bug. Is that the expression?
Yep, it's a feature, not a bug.
We know the documents are a little bit ambiguous, but that's kind of the end of it right there, right? The minute you say, well, the documents are a bit ambiguous, but no, but the documents are a bit ambiguous.
They're very ambiguous.
Yeah. So there is no proper implementation when the documents. Now you could say, well, let's just read it in the light of tradition. But then let's just read tradition in the light of tradition. I don't really need a pastoral council that is difficult to determine, to define, and And again, this isn't a validity. So speaking as Brian now, this isn't a validity argument. This isn't a acceptance, and we talked about that in the now defunct season 1 of Trad Talk Radio. I don't need to accept Vatican II ACCEPT, except because it didn't declare anything new. It was simply a pastoral council. So I'm going to accept Vatican II as well as the biggest modernist Council of Trent or Lateran or Vatican I or any other council for that matter. I would think that Trent would be more important to accept, being that it actually has anathemas in it.
Yeah, or Vatican I or Carthage or any other
Nicaea
church council. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, all those things actually were condemning something or defining a creed or defining the nature of Christ or his divinity, battling fierce heresies.
Yeah, I mean, let's say you're a trad and you accept Vatican II. It's like, what is there to accept? They just reiterate things that are true, but now worded in a kind of weaselly, ambiguous way.
Yeah, yeah.
And then there's a little bit of spicy heresy slipped in there, just very plausibly deniable, though. It's not strictly heresy because of how ambiguous it's been worded.
So they should take the most suspect, incriminating lines, individual lines out of like Lumen Gentium or Nostra Aetate or or Dignitatis Humanis, right? Something on religious liberty or other religious traditions, kind of a religious quote unquote liberty. They should take the most spiciest lines that are inconsistent with Catholic tradition and dogma and doctrine, and then say, let's take it like line by line and say, okay, do you accept this or accept that? And by the way, modernist hierarchy, modernist bishop asking me to accept it. You tell me what that means to you. You tell me what is authentic ecumenicalism, and what is it, and how is it different the way it's been implemented from indifferentism.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've heard from the SSPX is like, we believe in 95% of the stuff that's written in the council because it's just reiteration of the Catholic faith. But then there's that 5% that's kind of pretty dubious. And I've heard it both ways. It's a valid church council in that it contains ambiguity and that it's, just a pastoral council, as Paul VI said.
Yeah.
And it can contain error because it's not a dogmatically binding church council. So,
yeah,
I don't know. I've heard it both ways. I don't make the claim that it's one or the other, but I guess both arguments really have a lot of weight to them.
Well, and that third position, I guess, is really just let's just carry on as we always carried on. And, obviously, liturgically speaking, the most obvious way of that is to worship as we always worship, to celebrate the Mass as has always been celebrated.
It doesn't even matter at this point. I mean, I guess it does matter if you're a canon lawyer or a bishop or something, but as a layman, I mean,
What difference does it make?
Well, it's funny what you just said right now. You said it does basically at this point, what does it really matter? And that Eric Salmon's article in Crisis Magazine, he compared it. He basically said we are no longer debating the merits of Vatican II is like debating the merits of VHS over Betamax. Both are irrelevant, really, at this point. What's the point? I love it. So Vatican II misimplemented, Vatican II implemented correctly, but just bad. What's the point of debating this anymore? We're talking about it. It expired. The milk is bad. It's sour.
Can we just like leave the milk in the guest room and never go in the guest room again and like duct tape shut the door to the guest room? And it's like we don't have to do anything about it. We don't have to drink it or like put it in a new thing or erase the expiration date. Like let's put it somewhere. Let's just move on.
Let's move on. So I guess the question people have is, as we're celebrating 60 years, and I guess there's some quotation marks maybe, as we're commemorating 60 years of Vatican II. Again, this is the opening session, I guess. October 11th of 1962 was the opening session. And as we're commemorating it, which is the when that generation dies. So there's a weird attachment to it from that generation. Even I think among the laity, we've kind of seen that in social media, in comm boxes and everything. When you get that 70-year-old who pipes in there,
it's pretty bizarrely hostile to. I mean, there's some real vinegar in some of those supporters of Vatican II
stuff.
My
goodness, we are not going back. Yeah. It was horrible before that. And by the way, I'm not going to completely discredit their personal testimonials or memory. For the church to collapse as quickly as it did, things were not good.
The church didn't start being in crisis in 1962.
Correct. Let's just get that cleared off right away. So for anybody who wants to try to discredit the traditionalist movement by arguing that we're fixated on Vatican II, no. I mean, you pick up any book or any good study of modernism, and you're going back 100 years. Think about the Society of St. Pius X. Why did they choose Pius X and not like Pius XII?
Yeah.
Because you already had the 20th century was the entire infiltration and really some bad stuff happening within the church that popes were warning about. And the theology was kind of getting wonky. The seminaries were getting wonky. Freemasons were consecrated bishop. You know what I mean? And, I mean, it was really bad. So we're not, no one's contending that it all started in October 11th of 1962. I think really what we're talking about is that's just this, that's kind of like the high water mark.
Yeah, it's a helpful bookmark.
It's a helpful bookmark.
A frame of reference, like a reference point.
Yeah, but it's obviously you had to have a lot going on that was in trouble for it to take off the way it did. Along those lines, I think I was telling you, Frankie, earlier about, and we'll put this up on the Trad Talk Radio Facebook page. For folks who want to see it, maybe we can put it in the comments on the YouTube channel as well. But there is a great documentary, a new liturgical movement. Our friend Gregory DiPippo.
Signor DiPippo.
Signor DiPippo.
Great.
Yeah, we're going to have to have him on here one day. He actually is a local guy now, so we have to have him on.
Is he an
here.
egghead? Is he intelligent? As if so, I don't want him.
He's intelligent, but he's Italian. He's American actually, but his name's Italian. So we have to have him on here. But Greg DiPippo had his new liturgical movement had a great article last year in 2021, which has embedded in the article an NBC News 1968 special called the New American Church, I think, or the New Catholic Church in America, something like that. It had like New in America and either Church or Catholic Church in the title. Yeah. And it was a profile of the church in flux in 1968. And it is a great time capsule. It is a phenomenal. You have to watch. It's really scary because kind of they have a few man on the street interviews, and these folks were already they sounded like the most liberal Catholic you'd imagine from the 80s.
Really?
Yeah, the laity.
Wow. So
the formation was already just sucking eggs at that point. Not across the board, but you already had kind of this, particularly as you get younger. So the people they were talking to who were older we're saying things like, I just want the Mass. Like, why isn't the Mass in Latin anymore? How come we're doing everything different now? But, of course, the way the media, it's NBC News. I think they were already NBC News in 1968.
Oh, you think they were cherry picking them, right?
Yeah, I think they wanted only old people kind of defending it, and then and the way it had always been. And then they grabbed the young people to kind of say, I'm Catholic, but I determine what that. One guy actually says, like, I determine what that means. No, I don't. You don't tell me what that means to be Catholic. I know what it. I can be who I am and be Catholic. I mean, they're already kind of sounding like just your normal cafeteria Catholic.
Yeah.
And this is 1968.
That kind of makes me think, though, if you go back to an age where there was supposed widespread piety, like how many of 11th century Anglo-Saxon England Catholics were actually Catholic and knew their faith. I mean, it's tempting to think that they all did, or that this was such a great place to live and to be as a Catholic, but I mean, the standard distribution of piety throughout the church, like, does it stay the same or does it change?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't know.
Well, that's a good point. Actually, maybe it's a lot about the culture as well, which is the more the church recedes from the culture, either on its own or, by a hostile culture, how much does that then, how much is that an impact? So meaning how much are people going to Mass? When we say that 75% of Catholics were attending Mass weekly, how much of it was like a societal expectation?
Yeah, right. I mean, because that's what I understand about the medieval life is just like you went to church. If you didn't, you would be punished. Like you'd be ostracized by your community. They would like make you go, and it's just you went.
Yep.
You went because like you would become a social leper if you didn't. And now you're a social leper if you do. So
there's
a price of admission, but so the things have changed, and I feel like today you really have to be a saint or a devil. There's the middle ground between being a saint and being a devil is just rapidly shrinking. It's way harder to be lukewarm today because of everything that's been happening.
Which, again, I think as we talk about it, I mean, that's got to be divine providence. Maybe it's gotten to a point where, God's kind of making it, we were talking about this earlier, which is, it kind of ties in with the council itself. God is making it so clear about kind of the right and wrong and what's holy and what is evil, and it's almost like for folks who still want to take the 60s and the Second Vatican Council and all these reformed sacraments that basically just like weakened the verbiage beyond recognition, removed all the prayers of exorcism, watered down the liturgy, etc. People are still trying to argue that somehow that was good. Or coming from a good place, or maybe it was just carried too far. As you said to me off of the show earlier, how much more cartoonish does it have to be? How much more obvious? How much more villainous do the villains have to be for somebody to go? You know what? I'm not defending that. Let's just move on. Let's close the chapter on the 1960s and all the nonsense that came out of it, and just like go back to where we were going into that decade.
But wait, Brian, a cocaine-addicted pedophile told me that's not right. Hold on.
A bishop that's been since, apostatized or laicized, was proclaiming that it was a great council. Actually, you know what? It's funny. I don't want to ruin the documentary for everybody. I'm telling you, you have to watch this documentary. I'm gonna hold on. I'm gonna look it up because what the heck is it called? This is just bear with me for a moment, folks. This is okay. It's called The New American Catholic. So if you go to YouTube and you look up The New American Catholic 1968, you can pull the documentary up, and it's like 50 minutes long. Of course, it had commercials, right? And watch it. It's a great time. Watch it because there's about 3 or 4 priests and 2 bishops that are interviewed in this. Oh, and a layman who was actually the editor of the National Catholic Reporter at the time.
Oh no!
And every one of them. Well, one bishop died within a couple of years, but he was such a mess that there was like a dozen priests and laymen in his diocese who were like really going after him because the accusation was okay. So this is the bishop of Oklahoma City at the time. Forgot his name. He The rumor was that Oklahoma City was one of like 2 or 3 American dioceses tagged by the U.S. bishops, at that time National Conference of Bishops, to be an experimental diocese, to really like trick things out to see how Vatican II they could make it.
Oh no! So just like going crazy with all the
Go
modifications.
all in, right?
Yeah, okay.
And so they actually profile a group in Oklahoma City at the time on this documentary called the Community of Pope John the 23rd, right? So October 11th, 1962, Pope John the 23rd is the Pope of the Church when the council begins. He dies almost right away. But
You've heard of the FSSPX. Now get ready for the CCJP 23.
And they actually said, we're not a church or a parish. We're the community of John the 23rd. And they had a board and they had like a CEO guy and they like basically brought in Father Bill. And Father Bill was to be the priest. And at first when I'm watching, I'm thinking, well, Father Bill, his name was Father Bill Nairn, William Nairn. I thought, well, Father Bill's got to be like some guy that like is an apostate who wandered away from the church. No, he was actually still a diocesan priest. The bishop gave him permission to basically go and be like untethered from a parish. And remember, now you still had enough priests back then because they hadn't ruined it. It hadn't been ruined yet where you didn't have any priests in parishes. So he was able to like kind of be freed up to go and work for these guys. And they show a mass that he's celebrating in like a looks like a parish hall. Everybody's just sitting down at tables, like they're in a cafeteria somewhere. They're sitting down at tables. The whole master's just sitting at the tables, their various tables, and he's like in his table in the middle. He's got like a little hand missile open, and he's offering the mass, and he's got this chasuble that's like says peace or pax on it with some like kid art, and all these kids they all art. And they process in all these guys. It's funny, these guys in business suits, but they're like hippies, but they're in business suits. And they're coming in, the young guys, and they're like playing guitars, kind of like kumbaya stuff. And these little kids have like these paintings, these kind of paintings that you do with like, for like, first, those kind of cruddy First Holy Communion art projects they give you at Novus Ordo parishes.
Yeah. Why is like child art so terrible? Like, why do things that are made like for kids, like kids movies and kids food, it's kids music, it's all just garbage. It's like, why don't you give them adult stuff? Why do
First Holy Communion classes and confirmation classes have to involve like really bad felt art, and like why is it always got to be like
there's always that like crudely drawn cartoon Jesus with like this big smile, and it's like, why don't you just show them a nice picture, like a nice painting of Jesus?
It's not like we don't have like Michelangelo in the Sistine Chapel and things in our past, right? Botticelli or whatever. Yeah, but anyway.
Why does everything have to be so stupid?
So watch it. Anyway, so Father Bill offers his whole mass, and it's just horrible. The interesting thing is that while it's in English, he's using the 1964 Missal, so the words are still pretty solid. It's actually valid. In a way, it's kind of sad 'cause it's a valid mass because you can hear he's saying the words of consecration.
Potentially valid. Yeah.
And then he gives he distributes Holy Communion to folks, and he's got the Sabori up, and they're all receiving on the tongue. No one's receiving the hand yet. So it's kind of a weird hodgepodge, kind of time capsule, 1968. Well, that's Father William Nairn. They interview a bishop of Bishop Shannon of maybe Peter Shannon of St. Paul, Minneapolis, Minnesota, auxiliary bishop.
Yeah.
They interview another priest who's like a social justice guy up in Milwaukee working with the inner city community.
Oh, good.
No, check this out, though.
Wonderful.
The auxiliary bishop who they interview in the documentary from Minnesota, that documentary aired like in, I think, spring of 68. By the fall, he had left the church. This isn't funny, but he married like a Protestant lady on her fourth marriage, 2 years older than him. He left but he didn't even make it to Christmas that year.
Oh,
he was a bishop out of the church. The priest they interview, Father Bill Nairn, the guy up in Milwaukee, I don't remember his name. By 1975, they both had left the church as well.
Thanks, bro. Really appreciate you wrecking the place before you left.
That's what my wife said. It's like, they rent the hotel room, they trash it, then they leave. They're like, we're just going to go ahead and mosey on down to the parking lot and get out of here. So they weren't happy enough with, they ruined the church, and then they leave the church, jerks. So I mean, I guess we should pray for their souls, right? So watch a documentary,
yes,
write down, and I'm being serious. Watch a documentary, write down their name. They're all dead now. They've all passed away. The last one just
thank God.
One just died. Actually, Father Bill, the guy who's doing the kind of horrible mass that they show in the documentary, Father Bill just died 2 years ago. Well, I guess he's not Father Bill anymore. He's laicized, but
thank God for that.
He was a professor, I think, but they all left the church. They left the priesthood. They left being bishops. They left all this stuff.
Hey, the great thing about the crisis in the church is all the original perpetrators are dropping dead.
Well,
thank God they're all dying.
And a lot of them, like I said, left well before they died. So to your point that you had said to me
I mean, not thank God that they left the church, but thank God that they're dying because, they can't do any more damage from that point onward.
And the ones who didn't leave are still fighting the fight. It's like you feel like grabbing somebody in the hierarchy in Rome and saying, "Watch this documentary."
Yeah.
But again, that's ascribing good intentions. As we've talked about before, I think they watch a documentary and they go, "Hey, we got partial mission accomplished, but we still got people wanting that Latin mass, and and active dogma, and who still want to have contraception banned, and so we got to keep on pushing harder until we knock them all off."
Yeah, right.
Anyway, so so there we go. 60 years of Vatican II. October 11th, 1962, the council begins. Pope Saint John the 23rd.
They make him a saint too?
Well, so check this out. So statistically, Frank, do we have more people going to mass these days or less people going to mass these days?
I'm not an expert on the matter, Brian, but if I had to guess, I would say statistically probably less-ish.
I think you're right.
Maybe by only a handful of people.
Well, I think it was 75% and 65 down to like 22% professing Catholics go to mass weekly.
Oh, really?
Weekly mass attendance, yeah. Like from
that's
75
really
to 22,
different.
I think, according to Gallup or some other polls. Opening parishes on every neighborhood block or closing parishes?
Oh, probably like about the same, right?
Well, they're just shutting them down.
Oh,
Pittsburgh, New York.
really?
I mean, Chicago. They are shutting down parishes left and right. Now, some people say, well...
Oh, wait, they had that great Vatican II council. I mean, why isn't things blowing up? They finally reached the youth, didn't they?
Hey, all those nuns in that special?
Oh.
They all ditched the habits, and most of them left being nuns as well. But
do you know the average age of the Novus Ordo nun? Take a guess.
I'm gonna say like 108. No, I'm kidding. I it's like really old, right?
Yeah. So 80. That's not a typo.
80.
Like 80.
So
that's the average.
That would be meaning your order is getting really old, and nobody young wants to be in your order.
Yeah.
Nobody is joining your sinking ship. They're not jumping on the Titanic after it hits the iceberg.
I think that the priest that I drive around was telling me that it's going to be a very real possibility that there will be less than 1,000 nuns worldwide in the next 20 years.
So
less than 1,000.
So of course there are some convents that are flourishing.
Yeah.
No, what do they have in common? Let's see. They wear habits. They usually celebrate the Latin Mass.
They don't run around like skateboarding with shaved heads.
Yeah, no, they don't do that.
Yeah.
They're not on a bus driving around talking about Obamacare.
Right.
Yeah, no, they're like nuns that you would have found 100 years ago. They're running school sometimes, maybe.
What do? Just sit around and pray?
What a waste of time, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, I think actually the Roman Curia is going after them. The Rome is going after those nuns, saying
really?
that, yeah, because they actually, God, I wish I got his name. Whatever the dicastery that is in charge of that kind of thing, really wants to shut them down because they view it as a waste of time to have nuns just sitting around praying.
The prayers of nuns are a waste of time.
Can you imagine? I mean, nuns for centuries have like stood or knelt in front of the Blessed Sacrament 24/7, praying for the salvation of souls and praying for our priests and praying for vocations and praying for the church.
Dummy. That's the point.
Yes.
They're supposed to pray. They're supposed to be in the nunnery praying.
Yeah. No, well, Sister Mary Pantsuit, who came out of Vatican II, they like you said, those orders are old and dying. So this is the fruit of the council, is just empty everything. And where we have seen things flourishing, there's a gentleman who I don't know who he writes for, but his name is Larry Chapp, Chapp, not a traditionalist by any means. He's probably what you'd call a conservative Catholic.
Oh,
but
brother.
No,
conservative.
Well, no, I agree with that. But Larry Chapp, Chapp, I wish I knew the name. I think it's like Gaudium et Spes 22 or something is the name of his blog. Kind of a play off of the Vatican document. But he's come around now. And he is skewering some of the folks that are still arguing about some of the other neoconservatives who are just arguing for the council and, hey, let's implement it right and everything. And he points out, he says, the only people, the only orders, the only seminaries, the only parishes that are flourishing with young people and vibrancy and people who actually believe all this are the traditional ones.
At least he's honest.
God bless the intellectually honest. God bless the intellectually honest. And he acknowledges it. So, and by the way, at some point we were all neoconservative before we were traditionalist. And, it's like it's a process. Definitely. So you pray for everybody. But they're coming around to it. No, everybody recognizes this cartoonish push to fully implement the council. So 60 years. Oh, so I think we got on a complete tangent there. Mentioning St. John the 23rd, St. Paul the 6th, St. Blessed John Paul I, Saint John Paul II.
Second, and then it's going to be Pope St. Francis pretty soon.
Yeah, they're going to skip Benedict. You think
so?
Oh yeah, they'll skip Benedict.
Okay.
Yeah, because he came around later in life and was like, yeah, I know I was there wearing a suit and not even a collar, but that's kind of all crazy. He just didn't toe the party line anymore in Vatican II. But yeah, they're canonizing every pope around as the church has crashed and burned in many countries, and as there's been so much widespread apostasy, so many faithful lost.
You know, Brian, when I was in the Marines, they give out medals for bravery, right?
Yes.
So the commanding general, the commanding officer of an infantry battalion, like the one I was in, for example, they each commanding officer would give himself a bronze star or a silver star just for going on the deployment, just for going to Iraq or Afghanistan. And those medals, like a bronze star, you kind of like have to kill 20 people with a machine gun and get shot to get one of those.
Yeah,
it's a very impressive award.
So
they would just give them to themselves as like, yep, this is my reward for being me.
So the infantryman needs to catch some lead in him and knock off a few Taliban before he's going to get that. But the other guy gets it for the commanding officer gets a participation trophy.
Well, they would give it to each other. These commanding officers.
Oh, okay.
Like, oh yeah, here, you give me a medal, I give you a medal. Everybody's happy. And,
you get canonized. You get canonized.
Everybody gets
canonized because Vatican II.
Yeah.
Vatican so 60 years. Well, the great thing about celebrating 60 years is that with each successive year that passes for the next 5 years, there'll be some document celebrating 60 years.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of shows that we can kind of goof on some of this in the next.
Yeah, true. There's going to be a lot of great material, so stay tuned, everybody.
Yeah. So, well, thank you for joining us as we have taken this time on this special episode to commemorate this anniversary in the life of the church.
I definitely think that while you're listening to this, you should do something special. There should be some kind of feasting or celebration in order for Vatican II Council, which has had such a positive effect on the church, an overwhelmingly positive effect on the church.
You can't dispute it. I mean, look at that, the fruits.
Oh yeah,
the new Pentecost.
Yeah, you should go out in the street and play a guitar while wearing tie-dye or possibly enshrine Pachamama in your home. That's a great ritual. It brings a lot of grace.
Yes, I'm sure it would. Or in all seriousness, maybe you should pick up Pope John's Counsel by Michael Davies.
Oh, yeah.
Published by Angelus Press, and read it. Pope John's Counsel.
Yeah,
by Michael Davies.
Michael Davies. He was a Vatican II commenter.
Yes,
he knew a few things about Vatican II.
Yes, I think there was another book called Phoenix from the Ashes by Henry Sire, S-I-R-E, I believe is his name. That would be another one. Do a little reading.
Yeah, definitely.
Do a little reading on this because and there's that blog post I told you about, Time to Let Go of Vatican II by that liturgy guy. You could look at that little brief blog post. But
yeah, he's great.
Crisis Magazine article that I quoted from by Eric Sammons. We'll put all these on the Trad Talk Radio Facebook page.
Yeah, definitely.
And we do have, as we always do with every episode, including these special episodes, we do have an email address as well for folks.
tradtalkradio@gmail.com.
There you go. And if you do not already subscribe to the show, you can go to Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcast, or YouTube.
Remember the coupon code, St. Paul VI, pray for us. 90% off the $0 a month that it costs to listen to us.
And as we conclude, so thank you for being platinum gold members of our special subscription.
Double Miles Club.
Which gave you access to this content.
Yeah, don't tell any other loser listeners about it. You are in the elite platinum gold tier, so just keep that to yourself, okay?
There you go.
Between us.
All right. And until next time, folks.
Yep.